From Montesino in Vienna, it's the unique league tournament with 16 of the greatest poker players on the planet battling it out for $2.2 million. This is the Party Poker Premier League Poker Season 5. Our 16 Premier League players have won millions of dollars in tournaments and cash games worldwide, taking down every major title going. They are poker's elite, and only one will become the Premier League Poker Season 5 champion.
Cards are going to be flying off the table soon.
They're going to go nuts when they see this.
You could have outplayed me there.
I heard I'm not supposed to make friends.
Just have my blinds here, just take them.
This is the first time I've ever heard Tom Dwan be excited about the chance of folding.
I want to fold, but I just felt like I couldn't.
That's the way to do it. It's really hard to fold the hand this good when you're eating chicken this delicious.
I'm basically out of the Premier League, down to my last animals.
I had the G on the ropes there, and you've just told them you had the nuts.
It's driving me crazy.
I gotta deal with the stare down just to steal a freaking blind.
Ace King, you're good, you're good. You've got the best hand, whatever happens.
Oh, God, come on.
I mean, what the hell?
This is a standard fold. Phil has lost his mind.
I'm not getting any respect.
No, I'm gonna be moving in every game.
We understand that you're not very good, but you're a nice guy.
Edgy. I feel people have been very rude at this table so far at this heat.
You are the best, Eugene.
It's bike time.
Can you shut up for a bit, because I'm actually thinking.
Who knows what I think sometimes?
Curiosity's killing me.
Real nice.
Come on, let's see the river.
If you have aces right now, I'll never talk to you again.
Wow.
I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. I'm so angry at myself right now.
Shut him up.
For a pair? Good news.
Do you want to swap hands?
Zasco smell the rat.
I'm not going to listen to Tony anyway. He clearly has no idea what he's doing. That's pretty cool. Ooh. Oh, sweat, sweat. Yeah! What would you do here then, Tony?
Boom! Let's go! Yeah! Everyone's a winner.
This season, our 16 Premier League players have been divided into 2 groups of 8. They'll play 4 matches each in a bid to accumulate points to progress through to the final table. The winner of each match will receive 16 points, the runner-up will get 11, then it's 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 0 points for coming last. After all matches have played out, the top 3 players in each group will go through to the final table. Those in 4th and 5th place in both groups will play heads up to determine who takes the last 2 spots at the final. The players in 6th, 7th, and 8th positions will be knocked out. So far, Group A and B have played 1 match each. This is what's happened so far.
Group A was up first. Players included Tony G, Luke Schwartz, Phil Laak, Andy Frankenberger, Erik Seidel, Eugene Katchalov, Sam Trickett, and global qualifier Mathew Frankland. The first to fall was last year's runner-up Luke Full Flush Schwartz, followed by 8-time WSOB bracelet winner Erik Seidel.
All right, good luck, all.
Eugene Katchalov was knocked out in 6th place by the Premier League mixed game champion Andy Frankenberger. Tony G went from chip leader to the rail in 10 hands as he was knocked out by internet qualifier Mathew Frankland.
How easy is that? Well done. That's the way to do it.
Sam Trickett took 4th place, and Franklin's luck ran out as he finished in 3rd.
Yeah, boys. Well played. Cheers.
Heads up was between Laak and Frankenberger. Laak repeated his early success in last season's Premier League and won the match with a pair of kings to take maximum points.
That was a sick ride. Wow, I never expected to win it. That was sick.
Here are the league standings for Group A after 1 match. As Phil Laak picked up 16 points, he leads the group. Andy Frankenberger and Mathew Frankland join him in the top 3. In the playoff zone, it's Sam Trickett and Tony G, and in the relegation zone, it's Eugene Katchalov, Erik Seidel, and Luke Schwartz. Then it was Group B's turn. Players included Tom Dwan, Jungleman, Patrick Antonius, Vanessa Selps, Yevgeniy Timoshenko, Elke, Scott Seaver, and our second global qualifier, Benjamin Wilanovsky. They all took their seats with one exception, Tom Dwan, who had missed his flight from Macau. As a consequence, he forfeited his blinds in levels 1 to 3. Once he did turn up, he didn't do too badly considering his late arrival. This is how the league table looks after Group B's first league match. Patrick Antonius sits at the top with 16 points. Scott Seaver and Jungleman join him in the top 3. Tom Dwan and Elke are in the playoff zone, and in the relegation zone is Yevgeniy Timoshenko, Vanessa Selpt, and Benjamin Wilanovsky. Those in the relegation zones of both groups have a lot of work to do as the second round of league matches play out.
So Group A's second league match is about to get underway. Let's head over to your commentary team, Jesse May and Yevgeniy Timoshenko.
Thanks, Kara. Group A's second match will kick off soon, and I'm joined by someone from Group B. He's become a bit of a Premier League poker veteran, Yevgeniy Timoshenko. Now, Yevgeniy, with the second match about to kick off, all the players for the first match, they know what points they got. Is it more important to them to just play poker, or should they think about strategies according to their league standings?
I think right now it's a little too early to be thinking about point strategy. I think you should just go out there and try to make the best poker decisions you can and leave the point strategy for the third and fourth match when the leaderboard is a bit more defined.
Now, Group A, much different lineup from Group B. When you look at Group A, what names excite you about, these are guys I really like to watch play poker?
Well, Erik, Seidel, Eugene, Katchalov, and Sam Trickett are 3 of the hottest players in the world, and especially last year, they basically won all the money from poker tournaments. So they're going to be a trio that's going to be really exciting to watch.
Let's see if Sam Trickett, Katchalov, and Erik Seidel can improve their fortunes in this second heat match.
I'm basically out of the Premier League, down to my last animals.
I got to deal with the stare down just to steal a freaking blind.
I got the bagel last time, so I have to get some chips.
This is a standard fold. Phil has lost his mind.
I had the G on the ropes there, and you've just told me you had the nuts.
I'm not getting any respect.
Second league match for Group A here in Premier League Poker 5. There's a buzz around the table, and the pressure only increases. Tony G there, he's brought his menagerie to the table, joined by Yevgeniy Timoshenko. Maybe Tony thinks that'll help him out a little bit. He needs it in this crowd. Also on the table, Luke Schwartz. He's the guy, Yevgeniy, who took the bagel the first match, and you know how much pressure that puts on you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had the bagel in my first heat in the previous season, and that definitely it's an uphill battle after that.
Just a better result, then we would get more action. The game would be more fun. Yeah.
You know, Tony G was very upset after the first match. He only got 4 points. But at the end of the day, 4 points is a pretty solid start. You don't have to panic.
Definitely. He definitely has to, if he wants to make the final, he's going to have to get more than 4 points in the rest of the heats, because 16 is probably not going to be enough to make the final. But starting out with 4 points is totally fine. You still have the tournament ahead of you.
Laak has raised this and then powered it through with the 4-7.
Wow.
What do you think about Phil Laak? Because I think he's got, people perceive him as a tight player.
He is normally a tight player, but every now and again he comes out of his shell and just either makes a huge play or makes a really unorthodox call with some weaker hands. I think he does that to mix it up.
I can't keep up with the pattern stuff. I just collapsed there 20 years ago.
You just checked out.
I checked out.
What is it about Katchalov's game? Is he just a good decision maker? Is he aggressive?
He's a great decision maker. He's just very cool, calm, and collected. It's very tough to get him off his game. He's always going to be playing well. He rarely tilts. I don't know if he's tilted in the last year even. He's known for being one of the more stoic players in the game and really being able to keep his cool even when the cards aren't going his way.
Vanessa Selbst, who was watching the first Group A match with me, she coined a phrase, the Frankenberger factor. And I feel like because of your experiences in the mixed game championships, you kind of are aware of the Frankenberger factor as much as anyone. And Vanessa Selbst said, you know, he does things that no one would ever expect anyone to do, and that makes him kind of dangerous.
Absolutely, that's a good way of putting it. He thinks about the game much different than most of the other players in this tournament. I think that's a product of how he came up. A lot of these players played a lot of online poker, but he just kind of came out of nowhere and started crushing, playing his own style.
I mean, right here, Phil Laak's raised this early, and Frankenberger, who flatted pre-flop, has now raised this on the flop. Is this, you know, is this a standard, a weird?
I think it's unorthodox. I think players would usually call with his hand rather than raising because he can't really represent much hands, and it opens you up to getting blown off your ace-queen when you raise.
Well bowled, well bowled.
But he has Frankenberger, so he can do whatever he wants.
He can, and you know, not only, obviously, Andy's results in the WPT, the WSOP, the mixed games. Here he is, second place first match, and here, chip leader here.
Yeah, it's a great start for him.
Think about that. I like how you always find the intelligent, emotional connection to a moment. Like whatever's relevant.
Erik Seidel, most of his experience in the first match was getting his aces cracked, and that hand was sort of pivotal. We'll see if he gets a little bit of a run here tonight.
People want you to crush. Yeah. Right, right.
Are you familiar with Matt Frankland from the online world at all?
I'm not actually.
It's more luck involved.
I think I've seen him around at live tournaments, but I don't know who he is online or how he plays.
Well, he was very solid in the qualifiers. This is going to be a tester for him with G making the 3-bet. I mean, are they deep enough where you would be calling with the 9s a lot?
Absolutely. They're 300,000 deep. It's the first level. I would never expect him to fold here.
He has peeled it off, and the 4-bet didn't really make any sense for any purpose either. So, or it could have, yeah.
He could have considered a 4-bet, but with them being so deep, it's better to just call and play a smaller pot, even though you are in position.
G's got the king of hearts.
Yeah, both hated that flop, but Tony G's hand got a little better on the turn.
What did you show?
King of hearts. Oh, rabbit. See the river, see the river. That's a good card. Flush for TV. Yeah.
Really, no matter what it is, it's a good hand. It could be an ace, a queen, a king, a jack. I mean, Matt Frankland doesn't really care.
You're in charge, kid. You're holding the deck.
You don't need your permission.
Pace the power.
Yeah, Tony didn't need to bet a lot there to take that pot down.
Got someone in his ear saying, "No, don't do it." What's the big deal? Don't worry about it.
There's all the animals. One of them is sort of supposed to be the model of Zasko, who is Tony's dog. I think it's a German Shepherd. It'll be Luke Schwartz in a big blind here.
6 4.
This idea that the players, there's sort of this mini bubble right out with the bagel and then 2 points for 7th. So we have had several heats in Premier League history that, you know, went 4 or 5 levels without the first player getting knocked out. But I guess things develop a little bit as you know, the heats start to go on because players have more reasons to play fast and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Getting the bagel really hurts, but at the same time, getting off to a good start and having the whole table covered when you get to the later levels is also a big advantage.
Frankenberger, it was, I don't know if he was thinking about making a 3-bet on the button. Would that have been a reasonable play to the raise and call? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He has position, and as it turns out, there's a good chance if he makes it large enough, Seidel and Katchalov would have folded to the re-raise.
This is a 5-way flop, and for Schwartz, I mean, is he going to just barrel top pair here? Is that to find out where he is? There's no way he can feel like it's a strong hand.
I don't know if he's going to barrel, but it looks like he's going to come out with a bet, show initiative, and then once Seidel and Katchalov call, as they're definitely going to do, he might slow down depending on what the turn comes out.
And with Seidel calling there, I mean, would Seidel call with hands like, you know, he raised pre-flop? Would he be calling with hands like 2 jacks and 2 queens right now?
Absolutely. He can just call with even 2 kings or 2 aces in the spot because he has players behind and he wants to play his hand deceptively and balance the times that he does have a straight draw like he has, or a weaker pair like a 7 or an 8.
Luke's slowed down, and there's I guess a chance for someone to take initiative.
Yeah, absolutely, and it looks like Seidel is going to come out with a bet.
So he's representing a big pair right now, and Schwartz needs to make a decision.
Yeah, he was the original raiser, and he raised from a pretty early position. So although he can have straight draws like the one he has, he also has big pairs. He can have a 7 here. He can have a better 8 than Schwartz. And Schwartz being out of position, he's in a pretty tough spot even if he decides that Erik Seidel has a straight draw and is bluffing, he's in a pretty tough spot here being out of position.
I mean, it seems like you're folding here if you're Luke all the time.
Yeah.
So Erik Seidel taking one down without the best hand anyway. That'll serve him well.
Halfway through the first level, and it's Erik Seidel who has taken the chip lead. Luke Schwartz, who desperately needs a point in this match, now sits at the bottom of the leaderboard. But it is still early days as all our players strive for maximum points.
The best way to play cards is how I've been trying to do my whole life, which is to be like an active observer of the participation. You participate, but yet you're observing.
I need to get a few points together. I really badly need to get a win somewhere along the line, and hopefully today will be the day where I can come through and have a big win.
If we were like wind in the forest or water down the stream, you might not even notice.
My strategy is like a little bit different going into today because I played so aggressive yesterday, so maybe I'll play a little bit tighter.
Running good, decisions going well, good lucky when you're behind.
I'm really enjoying the experience so far. It's been brilliant. Couldn't ask for more really, and just hoping I can get a lot of money together.
When the operation is a fail and the patient lives, you know?
You will expect me to knock them off one after another.
You're just seeing like a guy on a surfing wave that's like lasting a long time.
It's not going to be an easy day for me in position-wise, but I'm just going to continue to play my game, look for my spots, and try to survive.
All patterns kind of take curves.
My goal is obviously to make it into like at least the top 3 if I can.
If a storm comes and blows your house down, why cry? Why not laugh?
Today I could just come top 4 and I'm still in with a good shot. Even top 5 and I'm okay.
Feels good, you know?
Phil Laak continues to baffle us and his competitors as Group A's second league match continues after the break.
Welcome back to Season 5 of Premier League Poker from Vienna. Around the table right now, it's Group A. Tony G, Luke Schwartz, Phil Laak, Andy Frankenberger, Erik Seidel, Eugene Katchalov, Sam Trickett, and global qualifier Mathew Frankland. They're all trying to accumulate points in this league format. Let's get the cards back in the air.
There is a general idea, you know, if you think about Trickett and Luke and Frankenberger all sitting behind Seidel and Katchalov, that, and we've seen it so far up to now, I guess, Yevgeniy, that when one of them raise, it's easier to call them because you know they don't want to bust, certainly not early. Maybe that'll start to get more pronounced. When Phil Laak raises, on the other hand, you know, he's going to get a whole lot more respect.
I was hoping not to play a hand with you until the last hand of the event, but something went wrong.
Check. Laak's flop top pair and check this, and during his first heat, and then again when he was commentating, you know, he just mentioned that he is the kind of guy who's happy to let other players do his betting for him. But here, like, you're never folding and you're never raising, are you? Jack 9.
Wow, this is an action card in the turn.
Because Sam Trickett got 4th and Phil Laak won, you know, they nearly went the distance. They were sitting next to each other in the Heat 1 match, and I'd say they played 4 or 5 pots together. Laak was guilty of paying off Trickett a few too many times in his mind.
I knew I should have just listened to myself this morning, huh?
Yeah, Sam Trickett's a really aggressive player, so it's tough to put him on a hand.
I said, Phil, just don't even look at the cards. If Trickett raises, just fold the damn cards. Don't even look at them. And then I had to go look at them. Ruined it. I qualified, and then I was trapped, and I had to trickle off some chips. Trickle the chips off to Trickett. Why not? You know, it's gonna go to somebody.
Also, it might be good if you bust first. It'd be good for the table too, because it
Then you're
opens
all
everything up, right?
Opens everything up.
Everyone's in
Yeah,
the
it's either
hunt.
bust first or first 2 or last guy. Or first 3.
So careful.
You know, there is this amazing thing about Laak. He's now through 2 Premier Leagues, played 5 group matches and won 4 of them. Is he got to be doing something right? He has to be.
Oh, of course. His record in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons is incredible. I think it's all the commentary he does. He gets to see how everyone else plays, so he comes with a huge advantage when he is playing.
That'd be great, right?
Even I'm here's hoping.
If you got like a 2 today and then a 4, be on 17.
Tony G makes you think about how hopeful and good it would be to have like the worst thing happen to you. Well, you know, if you go broke, then you have the opportunity to start over and, you know, learn so much, you know.
Also, Schwartz lost a fairly big pot to Phil Laak in their Heat 1 match, and it was Laak checking and Schwartz bluffing all the way down. Do you think Luke should be shutting down on, maybe not on this turn, or what?
Just for a big sprint. You win 2 heats.
Is it a bad bluffing card for Schwartz, or does it hit? Does it hit?
Not
Phil's
at all.
range?
In fact,
Yeah.
it's a good bluffing card for Schwartz. But he decided to play it tricky and check back the turn to make it seem like he hid the ace in his slow playing.
If he fired both the turn and the river, I'm going to fold the river. But if you
Did Phil Laak bet the river there?
No. It went check from the turn on.
Oh wow!
And I mean, there was an exact hand where Phil Laak did call Luke's raise from the small blind with ace king, hit the ace, and just check called all the way down while Luke was bluffing. So maybe that kind of played into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that might have been the reason why Luke decided not to pull the trigger on that hand.
17 hands. Seidel's only won 1 pot, but it was a nice big one for him.
Raise.
So 4 raise 5,000. 20 fold.
And a little raise from Sam with the 2 8s. I just feel like there would have been a lot of people who would have re-raised with Katchalov's hand, but I guess for him there's so many reasons not to swell the pot up.
Yeah, that's true. He's out of position against Sam, who I'm sure he doesn't want to get involved in a big pot with. So it's not a bad play to just underplay your hand here and just call.
And now with Frankenberger behind you, you kind of have to pass. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, he caught no piece of that flop, and Sam himself could have a hand, so I think it's a good lay down by him.
Most of the times when Frankenberger plays out of the big blind, he calls the bets on the flop, and then everything kind of goes from there. I mean, if it goes check now, I guess Frankenberger can win with a bet on the river. Or should it go check?
Yeah, he might. It depends what the river is. And that's not a good river for Trickett. I wonder if Frankenberger will pull the trigger and fire out a bluff.
Players have, it just seemed as things were going on that it's really tough to put Andy Frankenberger on a range of hands when he calls out of the big blind because he does it so often.
And not only that, he plays so unorthodox that he can take all kinds of different lines with hands that you wouldn't expect him to have.
So if you're Trickett here, you're always between calling and folding. You're never thinking about something weird.
Yeah, probably.
And that was the sensible fold.
Frankenberger could have hearts there, so there's no reason to bluff him. You either think Frankenberger had a hand like he had and he missed on the river, or Frankenberger actually did have a flush draw, check, called the flop, and then hit it on the river and bet for value.
A couple more hands right now in the first level, and then the blinds will go up. I guess when we're going to have a look at the stats, we'll find out that I guess Seidel and Frankland have probably been the least active so far during this first level, but maybe it's very, very hand
We haven't
related.
seen much from Tony G either.
Right. I mean, Tony's got the big personality and everything, but he's kind of like, he does have a bit of a tight thing going on about him, especially in this format.
Yeah, that's true. You need to wind him up to get him to open up and start playing a lot of pots.
The donkey.
Says, I'll get the donkey ready for you, Luke. Oh, boy.
Oh, wow.
So how should Luke think about playing this against Tony's whole range?
I think you have such a monster you have to raise.
8,000.
If Tony has a hand like he has, or if he has enough flush draw, so be it. But against all the possible hands that Tony can have, I think Luke Schwartz should raise here.
Raise. 22.
And I mean, Tony's the kind of guy, Tony. Sometimes Tony's a little bit tight, but with big pairs on flops, he doesn't mind getting about 100 big blinds in, does he?
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't. But in this situation, it looks like he chooses just to call and see the turn.
This pot's getting big, and Schwartz is hit.
Wow. And I don't think this is the turn card that Tony G can fold onto a Schwartz bet. So this is going to be interesting how this pot plays out.
I mean, G, when Schwartz does check raise there, G should be thinking he's either trying to represent something big like two pair or a diamond draw, right?
Yeah, he can have a diamond draw, or he can just have a complete air ball like a 5-6. And I'm really surprised that Schwartz checks this turn.
Why did he do that?
Check.
Oh, he checked again, which is a great play, actually. Because now, if Tony G has the hand that he has represented to this point, he can check raise and perhaps get a, not perhaps, likely get a curious call from Tony.
Yeah, very hard, I mean, for Tony to try and figure out what Luke Schwartz would check with and then check raise with in the 4 came. I guess there is this 5-6 that was kind of a double gutter straight on the flop.
Yeah, the question is, how big does Schwartz go?
What do you think? What would you do? You would get a little greedy, wouldn't you?
You know what? I probably would. I'd probably raise it to about 100 because there is a lot in the pot. Tony G just kind of underbet it, and that looks like a snap call, unless he pulled his chips back.
I mean, think this through. You know, Luke, but think this through. If you're Tony G, and you're trying to could this be a bluff? Is Luke capable of trying to bluff Tony off something?
Sure he is. I think Schwartz is capable of bluffing, even in this way, even choosing to check raise the river versus just betting the river. And Tony G checking back the turn. His hand is so under-repped. He's he probably really wants to call in this spot.
Yeah, how can he pass?
Let's see if curiosity kills the cat.
Boy, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. And he's not known for making big folds on the river, that kind of thing. This would, I mean, this would be quite special if he could make the pass here.
Absolutely, I think this would be a huge fold.
There's also an idea that Luke Schwartz really needed to go for, wow!
Wow.
Yeah?
He's turned a 10 into a bluff.
Come on, show him, man.
Terrible bluff.
And Schwartz is sick to his stomach because the fast play would have definitely made more money.
Oh, absolutely.
Didn't feel like a bluff.
I'll bet you that it was a bluff. Do you want to have a side bet?
Go for it, Tony.
Wow.
Huh? Do you want a side bet? It was a bluff.
The end of the first level sees Erik Seidel still sitting at the top of the board, and Luke Schwartz has now moved into second position with 340,000. After coming last in his first heat, Luke needs a good finish today to help secure a top place finish on the league table. In Premier League Poker 4, Luke Schwartz enjoyed great success, making it to the final table, where he ended up coming second to David Benjamin.
This is a big moment for Schwartz. He's got to find a sixth sense.
I'm all in.
He's shipped.
Yes, I got a queen. I've got the best hand. You got 5-6. You got a flush draw, or you got
Queen.
Oh, why'd you slow roll? Such an easy call. Such an easy call.
Oh, really?
It's a 7.
No,
and
wow.
David Benjamin is going to win the
There's no
Premier
splits.
League
There's no
unless
splits.
a deuce comes.
He's done it.
And David Benjamin is the Premier League champion. Wow.
And Luke
well
Schwartz,
done.
this has been a huge tournament for him. Full flush is going to be a poker star. But for David Benjamin, he is a star and the champion, Phil.
That was a really good experience, that Premier League. If I'd won it, it would have been a lot better.
Mathew, Luke, well done. David, back in tournament poker, Premier League 4 champion. Well done.
It was heartbreaking, especially as I played so good in every single heat, and then in the final I played really well as well. I got heads up and went in 3-1 chip leader, and he basically called me like 4 or 5 times to win it, so it was depressing. Hopefully this time I can just get one spot better and get the W. But I've had quite a strong start to 2012 and tournaments. That's given me quite a good bit of confidence coming into the Premier League. I think I've got quite a lot of respect for my colleagues. I don't think people are bluffing me too much. You know, they're going to have to play very well versus me to beat me. So, I mean, I expect to make the final table and do well on the final table. It'd be a huge disappointment if I miss the final table, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. To win this would be a dream. I've come so close in every TV event I've ever played. I've literally never not made a final table of a TV event. I've always come second, third, fourth, fifth. So if I could just get the first, it would slot it in nicely.
I can't believe I laid it down.
Would you lay it down on the turn if I bombed?
I didn't have a good feeling.
€500, something like
Yeah,
that.
you
100
probably
euros.
have to lay it down on the turn.
You're not doing 50,000.
Probably more difficult than
5,000 maybe. You're sick, huh?
You could have got
me for 5K.
No, now you're telling me.
Of course it was a bluff, man.
I don't think so.
I mean, I guess if it was a bluff, well, we know it wasn't, but Sam Trickett seemed to think that Luke would have made that play, turning a 10 into a bluff, 10 jack or something like that.
Yeah, the blockers.
Yeah, it's possible.
7-9 flop would have been an interesting
Luke
hit.
might think that a 10 is a strong enough hand that you don't need to turn it into a bluff. Because the 10 came on the turn.
Yeah.
So Tony G could have as weak as a 9 or 2 8s.
Great hand to start things out. And for Luke Schwartz right now, he's up to about 340.
That's why it was a bluff, because he made it big enough so you can't call with your one pair.
That would not make much difference to me, though. The amount.
I'm quite proud of Tony G. I've never seen him make a fold on the river that big.
Yeah, he's grown.
I believe him, he's not gonna lie. He's obviously had the hand.
Now, if you're Katchalov, you've already flatted pre-flop. You flat now, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There's only one overcard to your hand, and you have position. I would definitely call here on the flop.
You're also kind of expecting Phil Laak to shut down.
Well, it depends on Phil Laak's hand and the cards that come out, but Phil Laak isn't known for running really big bluffs in a spot like this. So you're definitely pretty safe calling here and then seeing what happens on the turn.
And now that Laak's checked.
I think this is a good bet by Katchalov.
I folded the 8 of diamonds, 100%. That's why I thought it was a bluff. That's what made me sure it was a bluff, because I had the 8 of diamonds.
He's lying, of course, because Schwartz had the 8 of diamonds, but one level in the books, and the 3 with more than they started with, Erik, Luke, and Andy.
3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 4.
Always just a race to see who's going to be the first player under pressure. It took a cooler in the first match for Group A, and in the first match for Group B, a very weird hand. Is this clear cut between calling and the 3-betting? Wow.
Yeah, that's surprising to me that he decides to just call here. But it can work out for him if on flops like this.
Check.
And what do you think his main thought was? Did it have something to do with not wanting, you know, with the league standings type of thing? No.
Maybe. He could have done that just to play deceptively too. If someone has an ace-jack or an ace-queen and the flop comes ace-high, he expects to get a lot of money from them, since they can't put him on an ace-king.
Well, it's happened now, and between the check raise and the call, I guess the fact that Frankland's in should complicate things.
Yeah, it looks like he decided to play this slow and just call the flop bet of Laak.
Funny sort of card. It's helped Katchalov's hand, but it doesn't look like it has.
Yeah, if Phil Laak has a hand like Queen Jack here or hearts, he actually caught up and beat Katchalov.
Heart, ace.
Right color, wrong suit.
Everything that I didn't want to see him. Would even take like a black jack.
You're looking good though to bust first and give everyone hope.
I'm a favorite for that right now.
Eugene Katchalov takes the lead in Group A's second league match. The action continues after the break.
Welcome back to Premier League Poker 5. 16 of the world's best players meet in this unique league format for a piece of the $2.2 million prize pool. Back to your commentary team of Jesse May and Yevgeniy Timoshenko.
There is this drama. I mean, if you're a guy like Tony G right now or Sam Trickett, I guess you're kind of, in a sense, rooting maybe for Katchalov and Seidel, or you're at least rooting for guys like Laak and Frankenberger to go out early, because it just kind of makes everything so wide open for you to get into the top again.
If there's one player that's run away with all the points, it actually makes makes qualifying a little easier. You don't have to get as many points to get in, rather than if it's very spread out. Then it's much more of a race for who gets the 3 spots from this group.
So in some ways, in your next match, you're kind of going to be rooting for Patrick Antonius, maybe? Or
yeah.
Not the other guys, but Patrick, because he's got so many, yeah.
I'm rooting for myself first and foremost, but if I can't win, I definitely would prefer Patrick to win rather than someone that was out early on in the first group, in the first heat.
This has got action written all over it. Frankland's opened. Well, it's got action for him anyway. Called by G and Laak. He slammed this flop.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see if Tony G or Phil Laak peel this flop or whether they fold now.
You do beat a lot of hands of your Tony, but what do you want to see? I mean,
yeah, it's a very draw-heavy board. There's straight draws, flush draws, and Frankland could have a pair higher than Tony's, so it's definitely a tough call, especially with Phil Laak behind you.
Tony's taking the conservative approach, and he's right.
Do you want to bet?
What do you say?
Sam Trickett said, Tony, do you want to bet about this hand?
6 of diamonds.
I had the G on the ropes there. You just told him you had the nuts. He was on the ropes. He was still talking about the hand 45 minutes later. He was gone. He was mentally out of the tournament.
It was all a game to him.
6 of diamonds.
He said, I had the G on the ropes.
It's been declared. But I folded the 8 of diamonds.
You declared that as well.
I declare I had the card that he declared.
He said, I had the G on the ropes.
I can't bet. You're giving 3 to 1, you're putting a price up. People.
I can't bet. It's not right. It's not morally right because I know what he had.
You saw his hand?
No, he just told me.
6-4.
What did he have? What did he tell you?
He didn't I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to lie to you.
If you told you, you're going to find out later, but you wouldn't want it to come. That's all it.
He might be lying to me, though. It might be like a re-level thing. Like me and Phil do to each other. If we don't play, we just keep telling each other we have it.
You are good, clean information, kid. You folded the best hand. Check the thing.
So Frankland has flatted for the small blind and now check called the flop. This sort of under the heading of I don't really believe Luke.
Warren can't wait. On the block.
Yeah.
Is that not a good sign that Warren can't wait to tell you?
Luke is on the button, so he thinks Luke
Oh,
is...
sorry, right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw him on Twitter. I don't have my phone.
Oh, it's small blind, big blind. Pardon me.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. I thought it was button small.
No, I already know.
Oh, you know now. It's funny, isn't it?
I thought that too.
Now we can bet.
So Franklin's just kind of let Luke try and hang himself all the way through this hand.
I know what it is. So I would
Yeah.
take the wrong side.
So that's like for 10
euros.
euros. But we've declared it, so I'm happy for you to take it. Like it's been declared now. So.
What the hand does?
Yeah. That's why it's fine.
Luke shows good restraint not to bluff the river.
17.
Should we bet like £3 million on it or something? No. Both take the same side.
Are you saying it's like it was a real hand, right?
I think he just knew you. I think the whole table knew you had kings. So he tried to make you fold.
Really? Sky. Everyone knew I had kings.
You did like a really big smile. Smile pre-flop when you raised.
29 hands have passed, and it's just keeping in mind that the hand that Tony G folded against Luke Schwartz, that was hand number 7, I think. So we've had like 22 hands since then, and the conversation has not changed.
Well, there hasn't been any other big hands, so what else are they supposed to talk about?
That's true. That's true.
It's still good though if he's bluffing. Maybe it's still best hand. You can still win.
3 call.
He could be turning some random
4,
donk
4,
pair into a bluff.
5 fold.
Like 5s or a 7.
You know why? Because in the shoulder there's no...
Honestly, I don't know.
Katchalov's opened this, Frankenberger's flatted, and Frankland has called as well, 8,000.
No, Trickett. The string that's dangling down.
Small
Should be
blind.
hanging from that. Kid, no, the string right there.
7 4.
Here.
You're not allowed.
Why? He's questioning on his arm. Give it to me. No, no. This
Four
is the way
ways
look,
for the
if
flop.
you're smart, you would just have seen this earlier. No, relax. Kid. Put your arm down. This is just the way to handle this. There you go. Now you're like a little kid in the candy store. You got everything you need.
Check.
It's quite safe.
Check.
Elegant, huh? Oh.
You know, I don't think you get.
Is this a spot in Frankenberger's on the button where you would have bet, or is it just such a bad hand you just let it go?
That's right.
He can definitely take a stab here.
7 bet 11.
I think if you check back on the turn, it's going to be tough for you to win the pot on later streets.
Instead, they've all given it up to Tony G. That'll help him forget about those kings. I believe with Sam Trickett that really there was nothing else in it rather than just that it seems like the best way to have fun right now is to see what he can, if he can mess with Tony G's head.
1 4.
And why not?
3 4. 4 raised 10,000. 5 raised 25.
There was the dynamics between Schwartz and Trickett going on in the first heat. Trickett made a very light 4-bet shove against Schwartz and ended up knocking him out. And wow, is this a spot for Franklin? He's not calling here. He's a cold 4-bet.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about this?
I think this is a really good play, especially with the hands that Trickett and Schwartz has. I think this is going to work out.
And you fold. I will see you down the food court later.
Oh, but he didn't realize about the big blind, and that's kings or aces only, right? I mean,
wow.
It has to be kings or aces, right? It's never ace-king, right?
You know, get the bicycle out.
I mean, Laak is not shoving in over a cold 4-bet with ace-king, is he?
Who knows?
Oh, he is.
Oh, wow.
To me, that feels loose.
This is a standard fold. Phil has lost his mind.
We'll give it the line for now. I think you deserve this one.
Wow.
That's fair. Sums up the
Turns out it's a great shove.
It's pocket change to you guys.
Schwartz is just posturing here, asking for a count.
Okay.
Trying to save face since he
And Tony's passed Laak the donkey. And even Franklin has to fold.
I'm gonna raise.
Only aces there. Or kings. I can sometimes have kings. Never ace queen. Or
But the dynamics there, and take Laak out of the equation, that big hand. Do both Luke and Trickett have to wake up a little bit now, realizing that Franklin, he 4-bet them with something that couldn't call an all-in? Do they have to think about things a little different?
Yeah, especially since Franklin didn't even think about it. They know that he was bluffing. So if they haven't given Franklin respect yet, they should begin to respect his game and realize that he is another player that can make big moves like that.
Montesino Casino, Vienna filling up.
I always give a speech before the top 2 hands. Yeah.
7 raised 11. 8 4.
There has been an astounding lack of chip movement so far in this match. Players really sort of grinding it down. The re-raise by Seidel, though, the Tony G Open. I think sometimes that Tony G has a bit of a thing, has it in for Seidel a little bit. He wants to win, wants to beat him.
Oh wow, Seidel checks back this flop here.
And he just got Tony G, didn't he?
Looks
he just
like
got him.
Yeah, this is a great play.
This is going to get him at least 40. I mean, the thing now is, in order to sell the story properly, you have to call, right? Because if you raise here, it's like, what did the deuce do?
Yeah, exactly. If you raise here, it looks really suspicious.
And you know, you're trying to tell Tony G you have like, you know, queens, jacks, or tens and can fold the river.
If you raise on the turn, that's not the line you would take if you were bluffing.
Right.
So calling's the best play. Make it seem like you have a scared pair or a weak ace. Give Tony some room to fire another barrel on the river.
Well, G has checked here, which I guess means he's given it up. As he has. And Seidel picked up an extra 40,000 there. That's going to help him out for sure.
That was a good fold, though. Did you qualify? You didn't even qualify.
One of the most exciting hands in Premier League Poker 4 was, of course, you and Luke kind of going at it, and I think Luke ended up making, it was either a 5-bet or a 6-bet all-in shove pre-flop.
I think it was a 5-bet shove with 4-6.
The dynamic's slightly different because it started out with a limp and that sort of thing. And
did it start out with a limp?
I think Vanessa Russo, and then I think you might have.
Oh, I'm not sure. I just remember the end result and not feeling too good about it.
But, I mean, to set up those kind of plays, or for those to happen, there does have to be dynamics in history, right?
Yeah.
7-4, 8-4, 1-4.
You have to know that your opponent is capable, and you have to know that your opponent is thinking on the same level as you, and knowing that you know what they know, and you're capable of making a big play like that.
Yeah, it was definitely Vanessa limped, and that's why you made the raise, the isolation raise, and that's why Luke 3-bet you, and that's why you 4-bet him, and that's why he 5-bet you. I think. I could be wrong. I'm sure. No, she limped. Yeah. This was, you know, Frankenberger again from the big blind, the check call. He gets himself in these spots, and I mean, he likes these difficult spots, doesn't he?
Yeah, I actually thought Frankenberger had the queen jack, but now with the cards the way they are, I think Frankenberger is just gonna fold to Frankland's turn bet. There's just way too much going on that board. Too many possibilities. Frankenberger could be drawn dead.
Which he is, as it turns out.
Unless he's thinking about raising, I don't think he can call with his hand on the turn here.
These two have some serious history in their first league match, and with that fold, Frankland takes 29,000. Global Qualifier really is making his mark on this year's Premier League.
My achievements in poker so far are quite limited, but I have got a third in the English Poker Open for £77,000, and In this year's main event, I came 121st for $56,000. This is just a massive tournament. I can't think of anything like it, any invite event like it that's as big. I mean, just look at the names. Every single one of them is an absolute poker hero, so it's a privilege to be here. My journey here was quite a long one. I started with a 700 qualifier online on Party Poker, and then I played a 10,000 sit and go with 6 people. We played down to 3 people, and then joined with another 6-person sit and go, and the winner of that got the seat, and that fortunately happened to be me. I don't really have any rivalry with any of these players. I've never played with them before for any exposed amount of time, so the good thing for me is I know a lot more about them than they do about me. To win this Party Poker Premier League would be amazing for me. It would put me on a brilliant global standing and push my career massively in the direction that I want it to go.
2 levels in the books. I mean, when you look at the stats, I guess especially the V-chip percentage, anything surprise you?
Yeah. The fact that Seidel has only played 12% of hands is very surprising, considering he was one of my picks heading into this match.
We return to the beautiful Austrian capital, Vienna, after the break, as this Premier League match continues.
Welcome back to Premier League Poker 5 here in Vienna. Still a full table of 8 in this one. Who'll crack first and exit with 0 points? Let's get back to the game.
That's the pacifier. That must be for the baby. There's the lion. There's Zasko the dog. The donkey.
Like cigar on.
Everyone loves it.
But the blind's now at 3 and 6,000.
Basically, I'm basically out of the Premier League, down to my last animals. Still got a bear here, a lion. There's a donkey at the back. There's something to suck on. I'm doing okay.
And you're here.
I'm still here.
And you're waiting for your double up. Maybe this is it. You haven't looked at your cards yet, right? This could be the moment.
This could be the one.
Schwartz with the open. He's on 270,000 or so. And Matt was considering a light 3-bet, but didn't want to make it too obvious.
No, I said, well, but maybe I am supposed to do the all-in thing. Huh? It probably would have worked. What is it? 10, 12. That usually
it sounds like you muttered all in with some sort of angle shoot. I think.
Yeah, I'll just put in like 190 big blind. I checked the power.
Well, that was my nickname.
I'm roaring.
That's what you was calling me yesterday, the power. Made me feel good.
Anyone who raises. Close, but no cigar.
Wow, really
Close,
but Phil.
I got to raise Phil's blind with a deuce. I got a deuce, you got to raise Phil's blind.
That hurt. That hurt. It's far away. If I had pocket deuces, so at least it was.
No, I didn't have it. I wouldn't have showed if I had pocket deuces.
Right, he's not going to show a deuce if he has the pocket deuces.
No, I wouldn't. I'd just keep quiet.
That's a real hand. You know?
Vanessa was telling, after listening to Phil for a while, she took him by the side and said, Phil, you know, you have to balance your lying range at the table, because right now you're just telling 100% lies. She said, you know, you got to like at least tell the truth 12% of the time or something. And Phil said, my God, she's so right. I can't lie all the time. They'll pick up on it. So I think he actually is, he's trying to slip some truth into all the lies, you know?
Yeah, but he phrased it in a way that would make you think he didn't have deuces.
That's true. That's true. Well, action here, and
like everyone wants to do well.
Tony G's going to go with this. Is Schwartz? This is the
yeah,
cooler you were
absolutely.
talking about then.
Yeah.
6 red checkers.
And yet, G is so perceived as a guy who would 3-bet very tight. Any chance Schwartz might just call here instead of re-raising?
Sure. We saw Schwartz make a very tight laydown earlier against Erik Seidel with King Queen. So there is a chance he decides to play this slow or even fold. But I think
in greens, there's 60K.
Yeah,
the rest.
I think it's going to be very tough for Schwartz to get away from ace queen here.
He just got a big tell off Tony G. He said, "How much did you start with before the hand? 100K?" And Tony said, "Yeah." and he says, "No, it's a lot more, isn't it? It's actually 180, which is a lot more than 100."
If I fold this when you show me your cards, and I swear I won't lie about that other hand before.
Let's try to make a deal now.
Anyway.
I think the speech Luke is giving now means he's probably going to fold.
Is that a deal? Plus I got the bagel last time, so I have to get some chips.
Yeah.
I'll fold a big hand.
It's a big fold. It's a big fold.
It is. I wonder if Tony's going to show.
He'll tell you what he had. If you show him, he'll tell you what he had.
Were you calling all in? I mean,
yeah.
Just wanted to, you were calling all in?
Ace king of spades.
That'll make Luke feel good.
Yeah.
I had 8-6 of diamonds before. Yeah, I promise that's the truth. You had ace king there?
Of course. Why? What's the point? Well, I'm not saying anything. You're gonna see the hands. It's like if we didn't see them, it doesn't matter.
I had the 8 of diamonds.
You had the 8 of diamonds.
He might have had 8-6, but he didn't have 8 of diamonds.
And I'll bet you had an 8 of diamonds.
Well, you should be betting with him then.
He's not allowed to bet because he knows what he has.
Why are you talking to me? He's already told us he's got the 8, so you can bet with him.
You can bet with...
I'm happy to bet with anyone.
Mr. Trickett. Bet with Mr. Trickett then.
I'm happy to bet with him.
I'll give him the bet then.
I can't bet because I know what he had, and it would be morally wrong for me. It would be morally wrong for me to bet when I know exactly what his cards was.
But if everyone approves it, it's already like it's in the
Do you realise how people will talk about me on TV when they'll think I hustled you? It's not fair. Luke told me his hand.
Yep.
The
I cannot bet. You can't win the bet.
All the facts are in the open.
If you bet with me, you can't win.
I don't want to win. I'm happy to lose.
It's just the betting process. It feels so good. Getting a bet down.
I want to bet like 100,000 euros. I'm happy to have a go. I really take it. I don't care. I'm like declaring. You take all the money.
It's too funny. You're not really sure what level everyone's on. I mean, Trickett does not think he had the 8 of diamonds.
I don't want to name names because it would be embarrassing for the party.
Katchalov's open, Frankenberger's called. Yeah. You know, Sam's desperately looking for a spot to make a 3-bet. And this hand, and for him and Luke, both have too much value calling to do it.
Yeah. Luke could have considered a squeeze here, but he decides to play it slow and just call.
Because with like 40,000 in there, the all-in from Luke is interesting, right? I mean...
Yeah, or even just the re-raise.
I'm taking the better hand.
It was like Shawshank Redemption.
Trickett's flop 2 pair. You come out and bet, you check call.
I just don't want to say that a bet is hard.
I think that's what he's thinking about right now. I think you can make a case for either. I actually like the bet out on the flop because it gives you initiative and it can keep players from pot controlling the flop and playing it slow.
And that just took it straight down, which is not a bad result.
Not a bad result, but no one had anything they could have continued with.
Why did you want to touch the curtain so badly? What's going on with that?
Huh? I'm just tilting.
Everyone's like trying to have fun. If you take away the top stock, the top stack and the bottom stack, that's Seidel and G, everyone else is basically where they started.
Is that like a culture thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's something he does, and if he didn't say anything, you would come with it plugged in, and you've got to tug it. I get it. You tug it, sure.
Good spot for a 3-bet?
Yeah, I don't mind it. He could call as well.
It just has felt like Sam's been gagging to try and get a 3-bet in for a while.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Eugene plays this.
It's a min click back. So I mean, Eugene, who's got like 300K more, he's certainly got room to make a 4-bet and still fold, right?
Yeah. Looks like he's gonna call. I like the call. He has a good hand to see a flop with, and I think folding to the re-raise would have been too weak.
Wow. Huh. Check out that. It's hard to balance your quads flopping range. I mean,
that's true.
But although, wasn't it you who had the opportunity to do it against, was it Andrew Roble? No, you were just at the table, right? But I mean, I just mean, now that Trickett's bet, you know, do you think he would still be betting here if he had an ace? Couldn't really be, could he?
Well, he bet really small, so he bet an amount that you think he might bet if he had an ace. Yeah. He made a bet that looks like he's trying to suck money out of Eugene.
He made a bet that was consistent with quads anyway, right?
Yeah.
That's tough to do.
I feel about room for a 3-bet. But it's just...
Well, a high likelihood that the first 3 levels are going to be done and dusted without a player elimination. Such a different timber of heat than the first league match for Group A.
Yeah.
Never in good shape.
Erik Seidel has, I guess he's raised 4 pots. He's had the aces twice, the 9-10 suited, and now the 10s.
I've seen him with ace kings.
Ah, ace king, right, ace king.
30.
Fairly quick decision for Seidel. Let's see what happens, he says. This is really the first time these two are going to square off. The check call, the check bet call, that's pretty standard right now on this flop.
Yeah, Seidel is definitely not going to fold this flop.
It starts to get interesting with whether or not Luke decides to or wants to barrel the turn.
Yeah, he has outs if he barrels. A jack, an ace, and a 3 are good.
But there's 139 out there. I mean, he doesn't even really have to bet to think about getting the rest of the money in on the river.
Yeah. I think he knows Seidel has a hand like the one he has, and he thinks it's probably gonna be too difficult to get him off it.
That was quite expensive for Luke Schwartz, and conversely for Erik Seidel, tipping the scales at $500,000. We are still 8-handed here in Group A's second league match. The players continue to jockey for position on the leaderboard after the break. Welcome back to the Montesino in the Gasometer Complex. Group A is playing their second league match, and it is Erik Seidel who is at the top of the leaderboard. At the end of the game, players will be awarded points for where they finish. The winner will get 16, the runner-up 11, then it's 8, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 0 for last place. These points will be added to their total on the league table. There is also money up for grabs, as $2,000 are dished out per point won. When you think about the biggest pot that Frankland basically has played, is that light 4-bet and then having to fold. The fact that he's, got more chips than he started with, I think a pretty big testament to the way he plays.
Yeah. He seems to be playing pretty tight but aggressive.
Good day out so far. This was Trickett opening, and he's got 2 callers. Everybody's on the straight draw right now. And everyone's thinking to themselves, if I hit this straight, it'll be so disguised.
Yeah.
They're all going after the same thing, the disguised straight.
That's 22.
It would have been fairly odd for Trickett not to fire continuation bet there, and it would be weird for Frankland to do anything but call in your mind.
I think with Seidel behind him, the standard play is to call.
6 call.
Seidel actually with the bet and the call has more of a reason to raise than Frankland.
That's turned Trickett's hand into the best hand, but he won't think it's changed much.
Yeah, now that he's actually made his hand, I would expect him to check as he does.
6 check.
There's 83,000 out there, and don't both these players need it? They're both on about their starting stack besides the pot. Okay, what is Frankland going to try and get Trickett off of that beats him? Is it a different pocket pair?
Well, 2 overcards have come out since the flop, the king and the 9. Trickett could also bet the flop with a pair higher than 4s.
No way do you have ace jack.
Basically, any hand weaker than 4s, he's trying to get Trickett off of. And he's also trying to prevent the table from seeing his hand in this spot.
Sam Trickett just said to him, do you play that face up that you'd have ace jack here? What's he mean by that?
Play ace jack exactly like that.
Is it so obvious that he can't have it?
I think Trickett expects Frankland to bet ace jack on the turn, and that's why he's confused and thinking about hero calling here.
Oh.
It was a good call.
Very good call.
And Frankland has been caught out trying to bluff. UK's best.
Most people play ace jack like that.
Yeah, I knew he was trying to rep the ace jack.
You have to hold on that one. You have to build the pot, then hold on, and then the money came.
I figured that's how the hand was going to play out in my head. Once I hit the king, anyway.
Those pots are really big, aren't they?
Yeah. Still very even stacked.
Yeah, I wish you made a set.
Between all 8 players.
Folded around to the blinds, Seidel v. Katchalov. Wow. And why are you ever not re-raising if you're Katchalov? Is it something about the awkwardness of his stack size, or?
Well, we saw him just call with ace-king earlier. In this spot, he actually has position, so it's not a bad call. Your hand is obviously very under-wrapped, and that can often be your best way to extract maximum value in spots like this, rather than re-raising and taking it down.
So it's just sort of like the way he likes to do things. Try and win a bigger pot. This is what's going to sometimes happen, though, right? You're going to get yourself in a bit of a pickle. That's a wild call. Is that a call with an intention to bluff the river?
Not necessarily. I think Eugene thinks he has the best hand here. He's just hoping that Seidel shuts down on the river and he gets to see showdown.
It's such a kind of a you know, even when someone says you got it and you have ace high in that spot, you're not even sure really. I guess maybe you are.
No, Seidel knows better than to say you got it when he actually has a pair there, so you got it actually meant that ace high was good.
Busyness of the Montesino Casino in Vienna. It's your first time here, Yevgeniy?
It is.
And surprised with how many tables there are, how much action there is, and how busy it is?
Yeah, you wouldn't think the casino is that big from the outside, but there's definitely a lot of tables and some very big poker action here.
Number 4 raise 12.
Schwartz starting to run into a bit of trouble. Right now, he and Tony G on the short stacks. Phil Laak has called this late, and Frankenberger in the big blind. He's got a really high frequency of peeling off the big flops from the big blind. I know I've mentioned it before, but I think a lot of people think that's a good reason to raise his big blind sometimes.
Yeah. Trickett made a min raise though, so he's getting very good pot odds closing the action.
And that really seems to be what's the operative thing for Frankenberger, isn't it? He likes those.
Yeah.
He's
He's not afraid to play out of position against these players. And Trickett takes it down with a bet.
You could probably divide up everyone in poker by those who, when they say you got it, really mean you got it, and those who say you got it when you still want to see what they have.
That's true.
We've seen it several you got it's on televised poker that weren't really you got it's at all.
Yeah, you have to watch how you declare your hand.
Folded around to the button, and Andy Frankenberger, who really had a great start in this heat, he's frittered away now down to less than his starting stack, and maybe feeling a little bit desperate. I mean, Schwartz is definitely under pressure. Why not the re-raise?
I think Schwartz doesn't mind playing pots against Andy Frankenberger. And Schwartz has 30 big blinds still, so without antes, it's kind of an awkward spot for Schwartz to try to re-raise and get it in with ace-10.
It's kind of like that Katchalov thing as well, where, you know, Schwartz, he just doesn't want to win blinds. He wants to try and get maximum value if he's got the best hand.
Yeah.
This is a tricky little bet because, I mean, if you had the ace and you're Schwartz, you check, let Frankenberger represent it. He's kind of leveled him here. I mean, he's leveled him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Because Frankenberger's like, well, there's no way he'd lead an ace. He would have re-raised pre-flop. And now you check and let Frankenberger bluff at it?
Yeah, I like the check here. I don't think he's made it yet, but I think it's a clear spot to check here and hope Frankenberger takes the bait.
5 check. Bet 21.
It's only 21,000. It's a really smallish bet.
I don't know what Luke is thinking about here.
It's such a call all the time for you?
I think so, yeah.
Call. You got it.
That's what he wanted to hear. Schwartz. It was a clever little bet, and it ended up making him about 35 extra thousand. 63 hands, and all that's really happened is not much at all. I mean, Yevgeniy, has tightness been the story of this heat so far?
I think it has. I think all these players are playing cautiously because they really don't want to bagel.
Luke Schwartz, the loosest player V-chip percentage-wise so far, but he's still in there with 6, and even 34% is not ultra aggressive.
That's true.
So Tony, it seems like this heat has a very different dynamic to the last one, where there was a lot more action kind of pre-flop. We haven't lost a player yet. What does it feel like out there on the table?
It feels pretty tight. There's people trying to play really good. Everyone's waiting for someone to bust out. It's the way the structure is designed. It's yeah, no one wants to be the fall guy. So everyone's waiting for someone to bust and then start opening up as the points get bigger. But right now, everyone's waiting for someone to fall.
Play resumes after the break as our 8 players continue to battle it out here in Group A's second league match.
This is the Party Poker Premier League Poker Season 5 coming to you from Vienna. 16 of poker's best have been divided into 2 groups of 8, and they're doing battle in this league format, accumulating points for where they finish in each match. The top 3 players in each group will go straight on to the final table, while those in 4th and 5th positions will play heads up for the last 2 seats. Group A's second league match is going on at the moment. Let's head back to the table.
Lines now 5 and 10,000, and Yevgeniy, obviously somebody's going to make a move. When you look at who the players are that might have the most reason to, it might not be Erik who's sleeping, but who's got the most reason? Is it the guys who are short on points like Seidel, Katchalov, and Schwartz, or those at the top of the leaderboard like Laak and Frankenberger?
I think it's the guys that are short on chips. So Tony G and Andy Frankenberger, both having under 20 big blinds at this level, are going to want to make a play soon because the blinds are going to eat away at their stack if they don't get something going.
So it's really chip related more than point leaderboard related for you right now.
I think right now it is. I think later on, as the roles get more defined and as people know better what they need in order to make the final, it's going to be more point related. But I think right now it's mostly chip related.
Well, here's Tony G. He's facing the Trickett Open. He's got no hand, but.
Could have seen the flop, see if you qualify. Because you could have taken it from me, I guess, if you really push.
And Phil Laak has been fairly liberal from the big blind tonight. Wow, the 2 jacks.
Yeah.
I mean, against Trickett's opening range, 2 jacks are really strong.
They are. I'm surprised he didn't re-raise. Because you can re-raise and actually stand heat with this hand at the 5,000, 10,000 level.
I don't know what I have.
Yeah, he's been out flopped now, so it's going to be just seeing how far Laak goes. But I'm quite surprised. You know, there would have been Phil Laak on the break, would have seen the kind of things Trickett was opening with, and I mean, he would know that jacks has Trickett in tough spots most of the time.
Yeah, but Phil Laak is a very strategic player, and I know he doesn't want to bagel, especially with 2, 3 players that are so much shorter than him.
Trickett having to make a decision about barreling again. It looks like he's going to go for it. And with Laak having the heart, plus the chance that the jacks might be good anyway, do you see him calling here, or is this a big enough bet to take him off it?
You know, it's tough to say. Laak makes some big laydowns, but he might decide to take a stand here, so I'm not quite sure. I think it's a very close spot.
And if you do call here, well, he has. I'm just thinking, you have to call the river a lot of times, don't you? And I mean, the river's going to be his stack.
No, I don't think you necessarily have to call the river. I think it depends what comes out. You can fold on certain rivers and maybe call on certain rivers.
how often in Trickett's mind is Laak actually calling with the best hand on the turn? Because we know how slow Laak can play.
I think Trickett is fairly confident that his hand is best, even by the river. There's not many hands that Laak could have called 2 streets with that contain a 6. So I think Trickett is definitely thinking about how much to value bet here.
What'll look weaker in a sense? Oh wow, he's checked it.
King, queen. Oh, I was going.
Trickett making.
Didn't think you'd call. I was going to call. That time I thought I got him.
Whether or not Laak was actually calling, he's obliged to say he was.
Huh? It's easy to say now.
I thought I was winning.
Yeah, King Jack, that's what I was obviously thinking about betting, but like, I just don't think he'll call off all this stuff.
I might have. I might know. I don't know, to be honest. I thought I was winning too. That's why I called.
No, he can trap.
You could be this, but then you would
flush there.
So that pot bringing Trickett up over $500,000, the first significant movement of chips we've seen in a couple of levels. And for Phil Laak, he's now in the zone of being as short as the rest of them.
I didn't think you would call.
What is Frankland's best option here and why?
I didn't think he would call.
It's tough to say. I think anything but a fold is good. I think you can call or you can re-raise and get it in. Like
right, you're always re-raising to get it in.
I lost because your hand.
Not necessarily. It depends on a lot of dynamics.
I would have bet versus most of the players.
Yeah, you would have.
He's gone for the 3-bet. Oh, and look what here.
265.
Obviously, Phil Laak made a really strong, I guess it was a 4-bet with a similar dynamic. The raise by Luke. Well, it was really a re-raise by Luke and a re-raise by Frankland. So there are some dynamics that could have him being light here.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if he's still going to call it off with 9s, or if Katchalov coming over the top is going to compel him to fold his hand.
110.
It's up to 110, and Frankland's now going to have to go into the tank here and figure this out. As far as the value hands, the Katchalov would do it with, everything beats Frankland but ace-king here?
Pretty much. And Katchalov might not do this with ace-king. He might just go all in with ace-king. I actually don't think Katchalov would be bluffing in the spot very often, so he could have just went ahead and won all in, because I think that would actually look a little weaker than the tiny re-raise.
Well, sounds like everything would argue for Frankland being able to lay this down then. And when you think about the point structure, Frankland, who started off well with 8, adding anything to that 8 except for 0 is going to keep him well in the thick of this heat.
Definitely. Even 2 more points would put him ahead of the pack with 10 points after 2 matches.
He's being asked a serious question here, Matt Frankland, and he's really been the guy for me who every time, people don't really know much about his game, but every time he's been asked a big question about his game, he's answered it in a positive way. So we'll see if he can make the big fold. He hasn't! He hasn't! He's got them all in! Katchalov snaps him off! We can only guess. What do you think the determining factor was for Frankland there?
I'm not sure. I think he thought he had fold equity. He thought Katchalov might be bluffing some of the time here. But I think it was few and far in between. I think he was hoping for something that wasn't there.
A 9's coming for sure.
A huge spot for Eugene Katchalov, who only snagged 2 points in his opening heat.
This is terrible.
And with the king service right away, it all of a sudden looks like Katchalov is going to fling himself into the thick of Group B, while Frankland's bagel
I need some tissues, guys.
is going to throw this heat, or this group A, wide open.
Yeah. The king's out.
Yeah, he definitely covers me.
The butcher's out. At least we're over 2 points.
An unexpected turn of events, really.
Yeah.
And I feel good too because I've had it on to my
like 300,
2
so
points
I got
pad, you know?
This is basically the first time he's had a stack in the Premier League. Look how it runs now, up to 600K. And Matt Frankland taking the bagel.
And Matt's the first player off of this table. It seemed like a much slower table than the last heat that we saw. It almost seemed like people were waiting for someone to go out. Was that the sense of it up there?
Yeah, it just seemed like no hands were happening that gave people a chance to put a lot of chips in, really. So yeah.
Not a lot of spots really to be making money. And nobody seemed really willing to kind of create those spots, which kind of happened in the last heat. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, well, I tried. I think I bluffed off about 300K before the first break and had only lost 35, so don't know how that happened. But
Well, going into the third matchup, how are you feeling about that? Obviously, having no points to take through from this one isn't going to help.
yeah, it's not ideal, but still just get a win. I should be okay. So.
Get a win. It's still doable. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
The $125,000 is the biggest buy-in that most people in the Premier League have ever paid, but there is a $1 million buy-in tournament happening this year in Las Vegas.
And lose if he bet the river. That's fair.
It is, of course, just a mind-boggling concept, $1 million buy-in tournament. I'd say out of the Premier League, though, you're talking about at least 4 or 5 candidates, at least, of people who may play or even committed to play.
Who's got the million?
Maybe Andy Frankenberger is one of them.
To raise 22. 4-4.
Yevgeniy thinking, well, that'll get me into my wallet.
He's got 0, then he's got 2 million. Yeah, but they'll put it up for him, I think. Yeah.
Making phone calls right now as we speak.
He's got the big guns behind him now.
Kings have been all over the place, and you know, Phil Laak, who there is something about his style, this the defensive style, just peeling off flops. At some stage, it might start to really hurt him.
7 check.
That's true, but it hasn't hurt him yet. So whatever he's doing, I think he should continue doing it.
Yeah, that's true. Right. He's won 4 heats out of 5 tries in Premier League.
I think the right play here is to call and hit a queen on the turn. What do you think, Jesse?
Queen of spades, to be exact, but yes. That's exactly what his plan is.
22.
And the thing about Laak, I guess, Yevgeniy, is when he calls on the flop, he gets a lot of free cards on the turn. You know, it goes check, check a lot because people are a little nervous about what he's doing this sort of line. The call and then the lead. Do you believe this if you're Frankenberger?
Not at all. Even if you believe it, you have to call and try to hit a full house on the river. But I wouldn't believe this if I was Frankenberger. I think he's a lot more likely to do this with a random pair like a jack or a straight draw like the one he has.
I mean, and now everything beats you because a lot of Phil Laak's bluffs should have had a diamond in them.
That's true. Although if he was playing suited cards, if his straight draw was suited, like a queen 10 suited or an ace 10, then he doesn't necessarily have to have a flush here.
It appears that you resigned. I'm wondering, did you flop a set? I know, I'm curious.
Isn't it kind of a funny bet by Laak right now? I mean, you think about, you know, I mean, is he bluffing? Well, yeah, I mean,
I think he went all in because he didn't want to check and have to face a tough decision.
Did you river it or did you have it on the turn?
I think he bluffed it.
It's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, is there an explanation for it, though?
I'll go out.
I don't think if you asked him, he would have one.
I think he had something.
Because I wouldn't say anything.
That was the worst river imaginable, I'll tell you that. It was either the best or the worst.
After that hand, Phil Laak moves into 4th position with 305K, but it is Eugene Katchalov that still leads the pack with just over 600,000. The blinds will soon be going up, and the pressure will be on for Luke Schwartz, who needs a big finish to help him secure a place at the final table.
Group A's second league match continues next time as our poker pros fight it out for those vital points which will put them in a top 3 spot for automatic qualification to the final table.
I gotta deal with the stare down just to steal a freaking blind.
I wanna go home. I wanna go home. I wanna go home.
Oh, sweat, sweat.
This is a standard fold. Phil has lost his mind.
We understand that you're not very good, but you're a nice guy.
I'm not getting any respect.